This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Hi friends, good morning. In this Business Intelligence Master program, this is our third session. Okay. So in this session, we will see important concepts in Azure Data Factory. So these are very, very important because whatever you do in Azure Data Factory, you are going to use all of these concepts. Whatever we are going to discuss, all these concepts we are going to use. So we need to understand why you are using each concept. Okay, we have a something called a linked service. What is the purpose of that particular service? We have a data set. What is the purpose of that? So you need to know each of these. These are very okay. So these are going to be questions in certain times. So you just let me know if you have any questions. Okay. In this session, we will learn basically what is linked service, what is data set, what is the activity, what is pipeline, what is triggers, okay, and how many triggers we have. We are going to discuss next. We are going to discuss something called parameters. Okay. Then we are going to see Azure Data Factory to data flow architecture. So data flow architecture you will get with the help of all these concepts. You are going to use all these components in your architecture. So before we look into our architecture, we will see what are these components exactly. Okay, why we are using linked service, why we are using data sets, all those things we will discuss. Okay. Okay, let me move on. First thing is linked service. So I will just have a one question, friend. If I want to enter into my house, so what I will do, I will have a key. I need to take the correct key. If I take the correct key and open, my door will open. Okay, meaning here there should be a something called authentication. If you want to enter into your house, or if you want to log in into your Facebook, you enter username and password. If you want to like log in into your net banking, you are going to enter username and password. In the same way, this linked service is nothing but a connection. Suppose I want to access some data which is there in some storage, so you need to have a proper access to access the data. How then like how you are going to say that you have proper access is, you need to enter some kind of a credentials, some username and password you need to enter, and you have to prove that you have a proper access, proper authentication. Okay, so once you can able to connect to those storages, you can able to access the data which you have in that particular storage. Okay, here you will have two things, authentication and authorization. Once you connect, after connecting, maybe you will have a 10 folders. So in those 10 folders, they may give access to access only one or two folders. Okay, so first you need to connect, you should be able to connect. Then once you connect, you will have a 10 or 20 folders, but you may not have access to all the folders. They will give you access. Okay, now you understood what is linked service. It's a connection string to connect to the different data storages. So linked service is just for connecting to the data storages? No, it can also connect to the compute services. What is compute service? What is data stores? Data storage means you have a database where you are storing the data. You have a storages. You will store the data in terms of files. Okay, database means you will store a data in terms of tables. Now here, like you are connecting to the data stores means you are connecting to the data stores to access the data. Second way is you are going to use linked service for connecting to the compute service. Compute service means I need Spark cluster. I need a server for processing my data. Okay, so in all these cases, what you need to do is you need to connect to the compute service. Okay, you need to connect to the compute services. Your voice is breaking. Everybody is facing same issue, friends. Can you confirm quickly? Everybody is facing same issue. Your voice is breaking. Bharat is saying, yeah. So Bhaskar will be issue for you, I think. Rest of the people, everybody is fine. Bhaskar, quickly rejoin. Okay, fine. So we understood linked service. For linked service means connection string. You need to authenticate. Then if you have a proper authentication, then you can able to connect to the data storages and compute services. Data storages means where you stored your data. Compute services means your servers. Okay, you need to execute our code, Spark code. If you want to execute, you need to submit Spark code on a Spark cluster. So cluster is nothing but a group of servers. So you need to connect to the compute services. So by using linked services, you can connect to the two different services. One is data stores, second one is compute services. Now we'll see. Linked services are much like connection strings. Connection strings means so connection details, okay, which defines the connection information that needed for data factory to connect to the external resources. So if you want to connect to the data storages or compute services from data factory, we need to create what? Linked service. This is what? It's a connection information. Connection information means, example, we will go with one of the example. I have a 10 blob storages. I want to connect to the one of the blob storage. So now what I need to do in linked services, I need to select which blob storage I need to connect. For this particular blob storage, what are the credentials which you need to enter. If you have entered proper credentials, then you can able to connect to that particular blob storage. Okay, so as I said, linked services are used for two purposes in data factory. One is for connecting to data store, another is for connecting to the compute resources. Okay, so this is about our linked service. Anybody have any questions here? Any questions, friends, here? Please confirm quickly so that we can move on. Okay. I hope now everybody is familiar with the chat window, whoever joined meeting recently, right? So please ping in chat window if you have any doubts. Okay, fine. Next, let me move on to the next slide. This is data set. So just imagine, friends. So you are like you logged in into your Facebook. Next, what you will do? So you will you will look into some posts which people posted, and you will watch some videos. You will share some photos. So you are going to deal with the data. So once you log in, you are going to see a lot of data, right? So now in the same way, what happens is, let's imagine you have some data in your blob storage. Okay, so first thing, as a responsibility, what you need to do is you need to connect, because without connecting you cannot get the data. First you need to authenticate, and you need to have a authorization. So meaning you should be able to connect to the blob storage, and you should have a access to access that by using linked server. But what is data set? Data set means, in a blob storage, I have 10 folders. Imagine I have a orders folder, sales folder, and let's imagine transactions, payments, and lot of folders I have. But I want to copy only customer information. I want to read only customer information, meaning data set is nothing but a reference. You need to refer which data you want to read, which data you want to transform. Only that particular data you need to pick. Okay, how you will pick only that particular data? You need to reference. By using data set, you are going to say that, hey, you have 10 folders, but I don't care about 10 folders. I am looking for the customer folder. I want all the data which is there in my customer folder. So something like that. It's a reference. As I said, it's a reference. See now, data sets represents data structures within the data store. So within the data store, you will have a different folders, data structures, right? So you'll have a like main folders. Inside main folders, you'll have a subfolder. So data will be organized into some structure. Now, what data set is, which simply point to or reference the data you want to use in your activity as input or output. Okay, see, it's a simply a point. You are pointing to what, which folder you want to read, that particular folder you are pointing. Next, reference the data. So you are referencing or pointing to both the same. Okay, referencing the data you want to use in your activity as input or output. So whether you want to copy, whether you want to transform, doesn't matter. But so for some purpose you need to select data based on your requirement. You have 10 folders, but you are interested in customer data. So So you just pick the customer data. Okay, so this customer data, where we are going to use this customer data, I'm going to use in my activities. What is the activity? You will come to know. Don't worry. In next slide is what is the activity we are going to discuss. Okay, next. So example very clear we have it. Linked service specifies a connection string to connect to the Azure storage account. So what Azure in Azure storage linked service? What linked service is doing? Linked service specifies a connection string to connect to the Azure storage account. It is specifying a connection string to connect to the Azure storage. Once you connect, additionally, Azure blob dataset. We have a next dataset. What dataset is going to do? Dataset specifies the blob container and the folders that contains the data. So container is nothing but a main folder. Inside that you will have a subfolder. So inside that you will have a subfolder. So inside blob storage, dataset is going to do. What dataset is going to do is it specifies the blob container and the folder that contains folder data. So that particular folder you need to reference. Okay, he has taken one example. So here, if you consider Azure storage, linked service is helping you to connect to the Azure storage account, and the data set is specifying the folder which has the data, folder that contains the data. Okay, next. So this is the one like high level diagram. You can see here. One thing you need to understand: this is a linked service. This is the data set. So if you want to reference any data in any folder, you need to use a linked service, because a linked service is mandatory. Okay, next thing is this linked service may use by your data set, may use directly by your activity. What is the activity? We will come to know now in the next slide itself. But this linked service may use by your data set for referencing some data. Maybe activity also may use this linked service directly. When these activities are going to use this linked services, when you are using compute services, when you want to execute your code, you need to connect to the compute services. For connecting to the compute services, you are going to create a linked service. That linked service will be used by activity. So if you're not able to understand this point, don't worry. So as we do the practicals, we will come to know. Okay, any question in this particular slide? Any questions in this particular slide? Okay, everybody's fine. Can you confirm, friends? At least somebody. My voice is clear. Thank you, Chaitanya. Rest of the people, please respond, friends. Quickly, we can move on if you respond.
Yeah, yes, Malaya.
Please let me know if you have any issue when you are like in terms of audio or screen. Okay, so because if the screen got stuck and if my voice is not clear, you will not be able to understand. Okay, so in these main concepts, there is a dependency between all the components. So now you have seen linked service we discussed. It's a connection string. By using connection string in data sets are reading the data. There is a dependency. That's why if my voice is breaking or something, please let me know immediately. Okay, so sometimes, right? See, I see somebody. Okay, fine. Let me move on now. Activity. The activities represent a processing step in a pipeline. What is that processing step? Example, I want to copy data from blob storage to data lake storage. I want to execute my Databricks notebook code. I want to execute my example. I want to execute my machine learning model. Okay, I have my model ready. So machine learning model I want to execute, or I want to execute my Azure functions code. Okay, otherwise you can say I have something like I need to call some APIs to send a notification. So all these are the one process. Activity represents a processing step in a pipeline. So what you want to do? Do you want to copy data, or do you want to execute Spark code? Do you want to execute machine learning model, or do you want to execute any Azure functions? Azure function supports different coding like .NET, Java, Python, anything you can use. So you are going to understand. So based on your requirement, you are going to say this is my activity. So you know, right, people will ask, so what you are planning, what are the activities for today? So meaning, what are the tasks, what you need to do? Okay, in the same way, activity is nothing but task represents a processing step in a pipeline. Okay, it's a one step. You're just copying, that is one activity. Maybe I want to call stored procedure, that is another activity. I need to check all the files which are there in a folder, that is another activity. Okay, I want to read some table, that is another activity. Okay, these are the different activities we have. Now see example, you see copy activity. When you take copy activity, so you need to, so here you see general, in general you'll have name and some other stuff you will have. And source means from where you want to copy the data. Sync means to where you want to copy the data. So mapping means that the mapping of columns you are going to do. Okay, from source side I have a customer ID. So target side, what is the column I have, whether it's a product ID or it should be a customer ID. It should be a customer ID. Maybe instead of CAD, so sync side, meaning target side, you may have a customer ID. Source side you have CAD, customer destination side you will have a customer ID, something like that, for creating the mappings. Settings is basically, if you want to increase the performance, we have some settings, we can use these settings for increasing the performance. And user properties, you'll come to know from where to where you are moving those paths and all. If you want to generate automatically, you can generate it, or if you want to create your own properties, you can create it. So we will see all these things now. For example, you might use a copy activity to copy data from one data store to another data store. So example, as I said, the activity. So one of the example is, you might use a copy activity to copy data from one data store to another data store. So this is one of the activities. Next activity. So similarly, you might use a Spark activity which runs a Spark code on Azure HD Insight cluster to transform or analyze your data. So similarly, you might use a Databricks notebook activity which runs a Spark code on Azure Databricks cluster. Okay, so I have not written that point here, but you can similarly, you can imagine, if you have some code in your Azure Databricks, that code, if you want to execute it, you can use a Spark act, like you can use the Databricks notebook activity or Databricks Python activity. You have few things. Okay, so all those things we will see next. Data Factory supports three types of activities. One is data movement activities, data transformation activities, and control activities. Data movement activities means, example, copy activity. Data transformation activities means Spark activity, Databricks notebook activity. All these are the transformation activities. You are transforming data by using this code. Control activity means, so example, if condition, I'm going to say if the table name is starting with Cloud Pandit, then only I want to process some kind of controls you are going to put it. So if and filter. So you have a different control activities as well. You have a filter activity, you have a if activity. Okay, you have a switch activity. So based on some conditions, you are going to execute few tasks. Okay. Here, this is Spark activity. So it's not clear. Okay, but when we do the lab, you will come to know clearly. I have not taken this particular thing clearly, I think. Okay, so this is Spark activity. Directly you will use the linked service here, but here you are using data sets, source data set, sync data set, because data set will use linked service. Okay, when we do lab, you will have a more clarity. So let me just give you some high level idea on all these concepts. Okay, anybody have any questions still here in this slide? Any questions? Right, that list. Okay, fine. Let me move on. So example, I just try to list down. See movement, move and transform activities. You can see copy data. So transformation activity is nothing but a data flow. Data flow is a code free. You no need to write a code. It's a UI part. Example, I want to join two tables. You just have to drag two different data sets. So there is a data flow activity called join. You just have to use join. Okay, you'll have inner join. There will be some configurations that you need to set, whether you want inner join, left join, all those things we'll see. Next, Azure Data Explorer, Azure functions, batch services. Okay, so if you are working in, I don't want to highlight the company names, but there are some companies, they will completely focus on batch service. So we will discuss how you will use batch service. Okay, it's a custom activity. It's a custom activity. You can execute any type of code. Okay, we'll see. And Databricks, we know Databricks code. Data like analytics also, we are going to see USQL code we will execute. So general means we'll have all the activities: lookup activity, get metadata activity, delete activity. If you want to delete any file, so delete also one of the activity. I want to delete something. Okay, so for that also we have activity. HD insert means you'll have a Spark activity, other things. Iteration means loops, for loop. Okay, something like that. We'll have a loops, until, and all those things. Machine learning. So we are going to cover almost all these activities. Okay, we are not going to leave any of this. So we will cover all of these things, friends. Okay. Next. So that's why I'm saying it will take more than 2 months. Okay. So pipeline. So pipeline is nothing but a, see now our next concept is pipeline. What all we discussed as of now? We discussed something called linked service. It's a connection string. We discussed something called data sets. It's uh, a reference to your data. You connected now. So you, once you connected, you see lot example when you log in into your net banking. So you will see a lot of people, but you need to reference to whom you need to send a money, something like that. You need to point out, right? In the same way, what data I need to pick, I need to reference. That reference I am going to do it by using data set. Next, what I wanted to do. Okay, so that will defined by your activity. Activity will tell, okay, you connected and you read the data. Whether this data you want to transform, or you just want to copy, or you want to delete it, or you want to do something else. So you have a different activities you are going to use. A linked service, data set, and activity. So you, if you don't forget, friends, please note down if you are going to forget. So linked service, data sets, and activities. Every day you need to use all these components. Okay. Next, finally, we are going to see something like pipeline. Pipeline is nothing but a very simple, friends. This is, there is no specialty in pipeline. So example, you have activity. So your activity is to copy data from blob storage to blob storage 1 to blob storage 2. This is not real-time requirement. I'm giving you simple example to understand. Okay, but you will not have these kind of requirement. Okay, where you are copying data from blob to blob. Okay, you will copy from blob to somewhere else. Okay, that is okay to understand easily. I'm just giving you example. I have a blob storage 1 and blob storage 2. I need to copy data from blob storage 1 to blob storage 2. When you are copying data from blob storage 1 to blob storage 2, what happens is you will use what? Please respond now. If I want to copy, what activity I'm going to use? I explain. Please respond, friends.
Pipeline.
Copy activity. So don't. So as I said, it's a copy activity. Good. So copy activity I have used. Now what happens from blob 1, you move data to blob 2. Next thing what I wanted to do, if copy is successful, I don't want to maintain my data in blob 1. So immediately I will use a delete activity. Immediately I will use a delete activity to delete the data which is there in a blob 1. Okay, I'm repeating again this point because this is important. If you understand this point, you can able to understand what is pipeline. I have a copy activity which is copying data from blob 1 to blob 2. Once this is successful, then immediately I will use a delete activity which deletes the data from blob 1. Why blob 1? Because already I have a one copy. Why I need to maintain another copy unnecessarily in blob 1? Same copy I have available in blob 2 now because I copied data from blob 1 to blob 2. So that's why I don't want to maintain 2 copies. I'm going to use a delete activity to delete from blob 1. Now, how many activities I'm using here? Copy activity and delete activity. I'm using 2 activities. So how do you use 2 activities at the same time? So 2 activities or group of activities, if you want to use, you need to create a something called pipeline. Okay, pipeline will maintain your workflow. Workflow means your flow is copy data from blob 1 to blob 2. Next, you just delete the data from blob 1. This is your workflow. Okay, this is the workflow. These kind of workflows is nothing but a pipeline. Okay, group of activities you can call, or it's a kind of a workflow. Workflow is nothing but a pipeline. Okay, now. So data factory might have one or more pipelines. First, we need to understand in a data factory, we may have more than one pipeline. It's not mandated that you need to have a one pipeline at least. No, you can have a 0 pipelines or you can have a one pipeline. You can have as many pipelines as you want. But in real time, we will see at least 20 to 30 pipelines. Okay. I will tell you, so people may ask, this is also one of the important interview question. People will ask how many pipelines we have in your project. So you need to tell, so for that I will give you answer, okay? So not giving the answer, we will do the labs. Whatever we do labs, you just tell them. So suppose if you have done 30 labs, you just tell we have a 30 pipeline. Because so if they ask, okay, so why you are using 30 pipelines, you should be able to explain all these pipelines. Okay, that's it. Next. Now you see pipeline is a logical grouping of activities. What is grouping of activities? Copy activity, then delete activity. Next, if you want to say, if the delete is not successful, I want to send a notification saying that deletion is not happened successfully. So that group of activities one by one I am going to use. Pipeline is a logical group of activities that perform a unit of work. Okay, what it is doing, it is performing a unit of work. So we just discussed. So this is one workflow phase. So copy data from blob 1 to blob 2, delete data from blob 1. If this deletion is not happened successfully, send a failure notification to your team. So this is one unit of work. This entire process is called a unit of work. Okay, so how you are going to achieve this unit of work? Together the activities in pipeline perform a task. So who is going to do this unit of work is all the activities which you have in a pipeline. See, activities in a pipeline perform a task. This entire task will be performed by all activities which you have in a pipeline. Next. For example, pipeline can contain a group of activities that ingest data from an Azure blob. So you are uh, maybe getting data from blob storage and you are ingesting data back to another blob storage. Then runs a Hive query on an H3 insert cluster to partition the data. Not only Hive queries, you can say it's something like Databricks notebook activity or Spark activity you can use on H3 insert to partition the data or whatever transformation you want to do. For you are going to do first, you are ingesting data, then you are transforming data. Previously I explained, instead of transformation you are deleting one copy of data. So based on requirement you may use a different activities. That's all. Okay, next. The benefit of this is that the pipeline allows you to manage the activities as a set instead of managing each one individually. What pipeline is going to do is pipeline will allow you to manage all activities as a one set of one group instead of maintaining all these activities individually. Okay, next. The activities in a pipeline can be chained together to operate sequentially or they can operate independently in parallel. So this is very important point, because in real time to increase the performance, this is one of the factor. Example, let's imagine I am copying data from blob storage 1 to blob storage 2. Okay, next, at the same time I need to copy data from data lake storage gen 1 to data lake storage gen 2. Okay, now you need to think, do you have any dependency? So do I need to first copy data from blob 1 to blob 2, then only I need to copy data from data lake storage gen 1 to data lake storage gen 2, or can I copy data parallelly from blob 1 to blob 2 and data lake 1 to data lake 2? Okay, first thing I want to make sure, if you don't know what is blob storage, what is data lake storage, remember these are storages which will store your data in terms of files. Okay, now what I'm saying is I am copying data from blob 1 to blob 2. In the same way I want to copy data from data lake 1 to data lake 2. So sometimes what happens, there will be a dependency. The dependency is once data is moved completely into blob 2, then only I need to run a pipeline from gen like data lake 1 to data lake 2. Sometimes what happens, there won't be any dependency, then You have to run these two copy activities parallelly at the same time. You need to copy data from blob 1 to blob 2, data lake 1 to data lake 2. So those kind of dependencies we will discuss. Wherever possible, we will try to use it parallel. Parallel means like at a time you are going to do all, at a time you are going to execute all activities instead of executing one by one. Okay, example, let's imagine friends, uh, if you ask people to come in a queue, so what happens is people will come one by one. So last person has to wait until all the people in front of him is finished, right? So instead of that, if you say please all of them please come to me, come here, then if you say like that, what happens is everybody will come to you at once. At a time everybody will come to you. Instead of that, if you say please stand in a queue, then what happens, everybody will be like next to next, next to next. So one by one person is going to finish the job. Initial example, let's say you have released some job post saying that we have some requirement. What people will do, everybody will come. Now you are going to distribute some applications to fill. When you are filling the application, if you say hey, please be in a queue, I need to distribute application, then what happens, one by one, so it is going to take more time. Okay, now what happens is instead of that, if you have a all the people, like if you can distribute all these applications to all people at once, all people are going to fill the form at once quickly, right? So parallelism we need to do wherever it is possible. We need to go with sequential wherever it is not possible, wherever we have a dependency. Okay, we will discuss more about this when we do the labs. Next you see here. So I just moved data from database to the blob storage. Then I'm transforming this data, and after transforming, I'm loading data into Azure Synapse. So many people don't know what is Azure Synapse, what is blob storage, what is database, all these things. Don't worry, each and everything I will cover from the very basic. So we just have seen today all the main components in our Azure Data Factory. Okay. So any questions as of now? Any questions as? Yeah,
So
Ramesh.
before creating the pipelines, we need to have the clear understanding of the activities that we are going to perform, right?
Very good. Correct. Correct. You should have a very
Okay.
clear understanding on what activities you need to use for your requirement. Because this is a pipeline, just you are going to put all your activities in pipeline. Okay, it's kind of a manager. Under pipeline, you will use all activities. Under activities, you will use data sets. Under a data sets, you are going to use linked service. There is a dependency. High level is pipeline. Inside pipeline, you will have activities. In activities, you will use data sets. In data sets, you will use the linked service.
It's all hierarchical process.
Yes.
Okay, got it. And one more thing, like a pipeline may contain a single activity also, right? It's not a like a group of
Yes.
activities.
Pipeline should have at least one activity. If you are creating a pipeline without any activity, it will throw error. Okay, you cannot exit from the data factory. Meaning you cannot save your pipeline without any activity. Pipeline should have at least one activity. Okay, but in a data factory, you may or may not have pipelines. If you create any pipeline, in pipeline, at least one activity should be there.
Clear. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, friends? So if you ask
Hello, Malay.
questions, then I try to
Hello,
I will
Malay.
try to example. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, is ADF capable of doing complex transformations? Suppose I have 100 tables to join. Is ADF capable of performing that?
Yes, yes, it is going to do. So it has a
Like,
serverless, all the
do we need to
required.
write- do we need to write custom script and integrate in ADF, or ADF itself it will do?
Yeah, there are two processes in data factory. One is you can have your code in Databricks. You can have your code submit on Azure HD Insight. You can submit code on your machine learning. So now what happens is these are external services. Just Azure Data Factory will call this script. This script will execute on the respective cluster. If you call your Databricks notebook activity, this notebook will execute on Databricks cluster. Okay, that cluster we have
Okay,
different clusters. We can select which cluster. whether you want all-purpose cluster or job cluster. But when you come here, like when you come to Azure H3 Insight, here also you'll have a Spark cluster or Hive cluster or MapReduce cluster. You have a different clusters, so you can use that. Next, if you come to machine learning, so you need to connect to the machine learning batch services. Okay, so likewise, we have a different connections.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Next.
And what's the exact difference between blob storage and then data lake Gen 1 or Gen 2?
Yeah, see, that is not our point today, because we are completely focusing on this data factory main concepts, because we have a separate session on that. If I discuss
Okay.
that, so we will lose the flow, because completely, at least we will cover whatever I have planned. I have not completed slides. Okay, I have a few more slides still.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm just taking the questions. If you have any questions with respect to today's session, please let me know. Because if you divert, then what happens is you will keep on asking the like other concept which we are going to discuss in the future.
No, that's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
If no questions, let me move on now. So this I have shown you now. So let's go to the triggers. Now we are good, right? So we have a pipeline. Pipeline is nothing but it is going to like do the unit of work. Unit of work means together like multiple activities will have group of activities will have inside pipeline. All these activities are going to perform this unit of work. But this entire work, I don't want to run daily manually, right? So I need to do something automation. How you can automate these things? By using something called triggers. By using triggers, you can automate it. You can automate it, saying that how many triggers we have, how many different ways you can automate it. One of the ways you can simply say, I want to run pipeline every day at 6 o'clock India time, India standard time. Okay. So that is nothing but IST. So 6 a.m. IST, I want to execute every day. So that is one way. Second way is, now you can say there is a something called event based trigger. Event based trigger means whenever new file arrived into blob storage, whenever you uploaded any file, whenever some file ingested into blob storage, based on that event, I need to run a pipeline. That is another type of trigger. Okay, one is scheduled trigger, that is fixed time. You are going to say 6 a.m. every day or 6 a.m. every week, something like that. Okay. Next one, event means whenever file ingested into blob storage, you can run a pipeline. That is second type of automation, event trigger. That is called event trigger. First one called schedule trigger. Third one is very important, it's a tumbling window trigger. This is very important. Most of the people are confused with the tumbling window trigger. So tumbling window trigger is basically for maintaining the dependency. Example, on success of pipeline 1, I want to run this particular pipeline, second pipeline. I have a pipeline 1 and pipeline 2. On success of pipeline 1, I want to run a pipeline 2. Second thing is, if the pipeline is failed, automatically my trigger is going to run pipeline again. So you can handle a failure scenarios by using tumbling window. Okay. Third thing, by using tumbling window, you can process your historical data, meaning you have a data which is from 2010. So all data which you have from 2010, you can process it. All those examples I will show you, you'll have more clarity. If I give example, you will have clarity. Okay. So we will see event trigger, multiple example. We will see schedule. Schedule is normal, very easy. You will be able to understand. Only thing is you will confuse with the tumbling triggers. So I will give you 3 to 4 lab sessions so that you'll have a full clarity on those things. Okay, next. So triggers represents the unit of processing that determines when a pipeline execution needs to be kicked off, when this pipeline execution should be started. Next, there are different types of triggers for different types of events. See here, one is schedule trigger, second one is tumbling window trigger, third one is event trigger. Okay, so schedule, tumbling window, and event trigger. We have 3 types of triggers. Okay, clear, friends? What is trigger? When a pipeline execution needs to be started or kicked off. That is nothing but a trigger. Okay, we have 3 types of triggers: schedule trigger, tumbling window trigger, and event trigger. Clear? Any questions here?
Yeah, Mal, I have a question.
Yeah, tell me.
Suppose I want to run my job every Monday, like in a week, every
That is
Monday I
possible.
need to do my job.
That
Is
is
it
possible.
possible with?
Yes, that
Okay,
is
okay.
possible. You can able to do it. Okay,
Is it with schedule trigger or with any other trigger we can do?
yes, in schedule trigger itself you can able to do.
Okay, okay, got it.
That is possible. Yes.
Yeah, can we combine any of these two triggers like schedule and as well as tumbling window? Let's say I want to run a job at particular time every day at 6 a.m. but on basis of a file upload successful.
Okay, so I understood. So if anybody is not understood his question is, you are saying you have schedule trigger, tumbling window trigger, event trigger, and you are saying maybe I want to automate my pipeline based on schedule or tumbling window or event. Can we do same pipeline? I want to automate by using event trigger and schedule trigger, or I want to automate my pipeline by using all of these. Yes, pipeline, like you can schedule it by using schedule trigger and event trigger. Okay, but the tumbling window is one-to-one mapping, meaning one pipeline should have a one tumbling window only. Okay, next thing, absolutely, even you can have a tumbling window. See, tumbling window is one-to-one mapping. What it means is, if you attach this tumbling window to any pipeline, so don't confuse friends, because at this time if I explain you will have a little confusion, but if you confused, don't worry, because we are going to discuss in detail in upcoming sessions. Tumbling window means it's a one-to-one mapping. One-to-one mapping means one pipeline should have a one tumbling window, that's all. You cannot attach another event trigger, or you cannot attach any schedule trigger. Okay, next, if I have another pipeline, for that pipeline I am attaching a one schedule trigger. First, you can attach a schedule trigger, you can attach a event trigger, you can attach any of the trigger. Next, one pipeline can have a multiple triggers. Same trigger you can use for pipeline 1, pipeline 2, pipeline 3, something like that. Meaning I have a schedule I have created one trigger which runs a pipeline at 6 a.m. Same trigger I can attach to my pipeline 1, same trigger I can attach to pipeline 2, same trigger I can attach to pipeline 3. Now all these three pipelines, when these three pipelines will run 6 a.m. IST, because my trigger will run all these pipelines at 6 a.m. IST, meaning same trigger I attach to the three pipelines. Now I have a one schedule trigger, I have one event trigger. These two can I attach to the same pipeline, pipeline 1? Yes, that is also possible. So schedule trigger and event trigger are many to many mapping. Tumbling window is one-to-one mapping. One pipeline should have one tumbling window. Clear, Parmesh? So if you are not clear, don't worry. So I will explain again. Parmesh?
Yes, man.
Clear?
Yeah, better. Yeah, good.
Good. Thank you. Next.
Thank you.
Let's move on. Parameters. So this is also very important. So parameters is nothing but if you want to like pass some values dynamically. So for that you are going to use a parameters. There are two types of parameters. Basically previously, like some 3 months back or 6 months back, we used to have only one type of parameter, that is pipeline parameter. But now recently Azure Data Factory, like Microsoft, introduced one more type of parameter, that is a global parameter. Okay, what is the difference between those two? I will explain you. First, you need to understand parameters are key value pairs of read-only configuration. Okay, you are just going to read these values in a pipeline. You cannot modify these values in a pipeline. You just can read these values. Next, two types of parameters we can define in ADF2: global parameters and the pipeline parameters. Pipeline parameters. So first question to all of you is, in my data factory, can I have 10 different pipelines? Can I have 10 pipelines or not? Can somebody respond, friend? In my data factory, can I have 10 pipelines?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Very good. So people are saying, yes, we can have, right? So now global parameter means, global parameter, I will say name equal to Cloud Pandit. this parameter will be available for all the 10 pipelines. Okay, but it's a global. Pipeline parameter means this pipeline parameter you are going to define at particular pipeline. Maybe I will define at pipeline 1. So this parameter value you can use only in the pipeline 1 itself. You cannot use this pipeline parameter in pipeline 2 because this pipeline parameter you created in a pipeline 1. Okay, got some clarity? See, global parameter means this will be available for all your pipelines. Pipeline parameter means it will be available only for that particular pipeline. Okay, so let me just take you through the some more slides. You'll have clarity. See, pipeline parameter, how you will define. See, something like this. So you'll have something like pipeline here. You might have taken entire screenshot. Okay, fine. See, pipeline parameter means you will define something like this. You'll have a parameter, you will define it. Okay, destination path, something Cloud Pandit I have used. Okay, something like this, you are going to create a pipeline parameter. Let's go to global parameter. See, global parameter, first you need to go to manage tab in your Azure Data Factory. Next, go to global parameters here. Click on new. Fourth step is give the name of your parameter name and what is the value you want to assign to this parameter you need to give. Okay, this is how you need to create the global parameter. Clear?
Like how we will be knowing which parameter belongs to which pipeline.
So that's what as I said, right? Global parameter will be available across all the pipelines. And this particular parameter, this is basically you have created from the particular pipeline. So the screenshot is not clear. Okay.
Okay, this is inside some particular pipeline.
Yeah, let me just show you so that you can, I already created one pipeline to take all these screenshots. Let me open and show you. Don't worry, all these things I will show you from very beginning, but as you are asking question, right, I'm just going to show you. Let me just open author and monitor. Okay, let's see here, just click manage tab as said. We'll have a global parameter. See, click on global parameters, click new. So you just have to give name and value. Suppose I'm just giving here name Cloud Pandit. So something Cloud Pandit, cloudpandit.com. My website name I will give cloudpandit.com. Click save. So you see name equal to cloudpandit.com. You have something like this. Okay, so this value will be available across all pipelines. How to create a pipeline? Come to author. See, you don't know, but don't worry. Just to show you, I'm saying here, create new pipeline. I'm creating. See, all activities it is showing here. Now, when I just say here, see, this is if I create here, okay, so folder name, something like this is a Cloud Pandit I'm giving. Okay, this particular parameter available only in pipeline 1. Let's say if I create one more pipeline, that is pipeline 2. In this pipeline 2, you see again you have some parameters. You have some parameters. See, it is not showing here because if you create some pipeline parameter, that will be available only to that particular pipeline. But global parameter, whatever you created here, that will be available to all these pipelines. Okay. See, whatever we discussed, all those things, let me show you in 2 minutes. So go to manage tab. First thing is we talked about linked service. Click on linked service. See, click new. So here you can see there are a lot of services available. To which service you want to connect. Example, I want to connect to blob storage. So you can search for blob. I want to connect to the SQL database. You have to search for SQL. Suppose if I want to connect, click on continue. So it is going to ask you in which subscription you have database, under which server you have, what is your database name. Okay, as I said, you have 10 databases you need to select, and you need to enter username and password to connect it. Once I connect, everything is ready. Go to author tab, click on here. Linked service you understood little bit, right? Now you see data set. So click on new. So from where you want to read the data. Example, I want to read data from blob storage. See blob storage, continue. So which type of file you have? So I have a file of type CSV file I have. Now you see, example, I'm just giving it's a blob data set. You see, it is asking you to select the linked service. because if this data set wants to reference the data, you need to provide the linked service. Once you provide that connection details, then it will show all the folders. There will be new tabs will open once you select linked service, and you can point to the your folder. Okay, that's how you need to create data sets. Next, okay, you are going to create then you will create a pipeline. Once you create a pipeline, as I said, you will have a copy data activity. Example copy data activity, you will see source data, you will select here sync data set, you will select where to move data, from where to where you will move. Mapping, so import schema, it will map from where to, like what is the source column name, what is the destination column name. Settings, a degree of copy parallelism, you want to increase the parallelism, so how many units of parallelism you want, so how many of parallelism, degree of parallelism you want, so you can increase this. So user properties, if you say auto generate, it will generate if you have any use like input path and output path. So all these things actually not, you will not be able to understand because we are very basic. Okay, so everything I will show you with the lab so that you'll have a clarity. Just to give you some clarity on that, I open data factory and showing all these things. Okay, clear? Yesterday I have shown you, we have discussed something called widget. Some templates will be there to copy data quickly, right? So click on copy data, discard and continue. See, you have a template quickly. Name you can give, click next. Okay, you just have to select to which source you want to connect and the data sets. Immediately you'll have some templates. This is how you can able to create copy activity quickly. Okay, so I know you'll have a lot of doubts if I open data factory because we have not opened data factory. We don't know how to create. Okay, because we are still discussing our main components. Okay, please let me know if you have any doubts. Otherwise, there is an important architecture that we are going to discuss now. Any other questions, Parmesh, Sudhir Reddy? These two people only ask the questions. Other people.
Yeah, can we pass these parameters dynamically to the pipelines at runtime?
Yes, we can pass it. Okay, so wherever you are scheduling, right, triggers you are creating. So from that triggers, we are going to pass it. So I will show you.
Okay.
So those folder names, path name, dynamically you can get it and pass it. Okay, I will show you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me move on now. Okay, global parameters also we discussed. Now we will see what is data factory. It's basically data factory architecture. I will explain. Data flow architecture, how data will flow. Before that, you need to understand. I will give you a simple example. I have a house. I'm shifting from my house from Bangalore to Hyderabad, something like that. In this house, I have a room. In this room, I have two objects, P1 and P2 objects. These P1 and P2 objects, I want to move it to the another house. In this house, I want to move it in this room. So first thing is, if I want to pick any of this object, I need to connect. So by using a proper keys and address, I should be able to enter into this house. Once I enter into this house, then I can able to like select the objects. Okay, I selected. Okay, once I select, I packing this particular object. Then once you pack it, you need to have a delivery address where to deliver this particular object. Once you have a delivery address, you will take this packing objects and you will unpack it here. So once you unpack, then again you will authenticate to this particular another house. So if you have keys and address to another house, then only you can able to enter into it. So once you enter into this, you will put this object into this particular house. Who is going to do this entire work? We will have a delivery boy. Okay, we will have a delivery boy who is going to do this entire process. Who is going to manage all these things? We will have a delivery manager. Isn't it, friends? Everybody understood this particular flow? Everybody understood this flow, friends? If you understood this, you can able to understand the Azure Data Factory data flow architecture. Okay, Nagaraj, clear, and other people, please respond, friends. Yeah, good. Let me move on now. See, please look here. Who is doing entire thing? Delivery boy. Who is managing all these things? Delivery manager. These two are very important because you will think that Azure Data Factory is doing all these things. Basically, Azure Data Factory is not doing all these things. There is something else that I will introduce now. But to understand that, you focus here. Delivery manager is just managing that. Delivery boy who is doing actual work. Okay. Now I'm moving. Now you see I have a SQL server. In SQL server you have a multiple databases. One of the database you can consider this, and in this I have a table 1 and I have a table 2. Okay, table 1 and table 2 data I have. Okay, next this data I want to move it into a blob storage. In blob storage I want to move it into this folder. Okay, clear as of now. Now I will connect to the SQL server by using a keys and address. Okay, you connect to this particular database. Once you connect to database, read the table 1. Okay, read the table 1. Then what you want to do with this data? So what you want to perform? See, how you will connect by using input service, how you will read the data by using data set. Now with this data, what I wanted to do, I want to copy this data or you want to delete this data. So I want to copy this data. Where you want to copy this data? So take this data and say this is a table data. This table data, how you want to load? Do you want to load it as a CSV, Parquet? We have seen different file formats. You remember, friends? Let me show you again if you want to see. So come to other tab. When you are creating a data sets for blob storage, so it will ask you like select what type of file you want, CSV, binary, or Excel, JSON, ORC, Parquet, XML, right? So you need to tell, now you need to tell in which format you want to load this particular file. So that format you need to select here. Then this format of file you want to put it in this folder. How you will put it? First you need to connect to this blob storage. For connecting again, keys and addresses I am using. By using this keys and address, I will connect to this blob storage, and into this folder I can able to place this particular data set, like this particular file. Okay, who is going to do all these things? Okay, who is going to do is here we have a something called server. This server is called integration runtime. Okay, we have some computer, we have some server. This person is going to do this particular job. Okay, this is Azure Data Factory. Okay, Azure Data Factory is what? It's a managing person. How we have a delivery manager, right? So here is a simply Azure Data Factory is kind of a delivery manager who will manage all pipelines, all integration runtimes, everything. But who is doing all these things? Integration runtime. Who is managing? Data Factory is managing. Now I need to understand. So you need to guess it and tell me. Now I need to copy data from SQL Server to blob storage. How many linked services I need to create? Linked service is nothing but a connection string. How many linked services I need to create? Please tell me. Very good, Parmesh. Very good, Manohar. Everybody, very good, Nagaraj. Okay, so we need to create two linked service. One is for your SQL server, one is for your blob storage. How many data sets I need to create? Referencing data. So your first reference is for your first table. Second reference is goes to this table. Very good. Even the two data sets. Okay, good people, good friends. Okay, now copy activity. So you are going to use a one copy activity. So this copy activity you have to put it in a pipeline. Okay, so we will see with the labs so that we will have a more clarity, friends. So today we just finished all this theory part. So tomorrow we will just start with our first lab. Okay, these are the slides I have. Please let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'm done for the today's session.
Malaya,
Yes.
I have a question.
Tell me, sir.
Yeah, can we have a quick introduction to storage services so that we can be easily able to correlate?
So first one I did not hear. So can we
have a quick introduction to storage services like Gen 1,
Yeah,
Gen 2,
sure.
blob?
Tomorrow when we start our lab sessions, right? So I will introduce you what is blob storage and different types of files it supports and what is SQL server. Okay, so everything I will discuss. So before we do the lab, don't worry. See, I know
Yeah,
maybe few people know at least high level concept. So we need to learn Azure Data Factory. I need to learn Databricks. There are some people they don't know what are the services they are going to learn in this particular training, but they want job on Azure and they simply join because they have a lot of hopes on me. So that's why I will consider the person who don't know anything. So we have a students here, we have a employees here, we have a architects who has 10 plus years of experience here. So we have all the people. So I will consider the student. So based on their assumptions, like I will consider a student. So whatever I need to deliver to students, so in that perspective, I will deliver the things. Okay, don't worry, each and everything I will cover. Okay, good that
is it sorry for the interruption. So is it possible to share this PPT by any chance?
Sure, I will share. Don't worry. These all I
Yeah,
will share. But it will take some
thank
time to share because I cannot share just like that. Okay, I will share because I need to edit these phone numbers and all these things. I don't want to put all these things. I will share plain these things slides. Okay,
oh fine, thank you.
no problem. Okay, if no questions, that's all for today, friends.